Okay, so what we're going to be covering tonight, what to consider pre-event. We're looking at event focus, types of event logistics, course planning and promotion. I always think that whenever you're looking to put on events for newcomers and juniors, the hardest work is actually prepping for the event. The event itself usually runs quite smoothly. We all know how to run events. We've been running events for ages. So the running of the event is the equipment needs, visibility, volunteer roles, taking pictures. And then almost as important as the amount of work you do pre-event, it's the post-event. It's follow-up, social media and website and progression pathways that you're going to have in place within the club. So pre-event, what you want to achieve and the steps to take for success. So when you're looking at your event focus, what is it that you want to achieve? Now, most of us would say, if you wanted to do a really basic answer, I just want more people to come to my event. That's a little bit simplistic. You need to think about what kind of people you're trying to attract towards the sport. Are you trying to attract families? Are you trying to attract young adults? Are you trying to attract families? Are you trying to attract seniors? The type of event that you put on will very much be molded to the type of people that are coming. An event which is focusing solely on trying to include families with young children is not going to have the same, you're not going to plan the same sort of courses as you are going to be for a young adult. So knowing your audience before you start is very, very important, which is also who the event is aimed at. Is your event going to be a traditional event? Is your event going to be something that's a little bit more fun? Is it going to be introducing skills? Is it that you're wanting to throw them straight into technical orienteering? So it's really important that you know what you want to achieve and you need to know who it is that you're trying to aim at. One of the things that a lot of people do is they try and aim events at everybody. Traditionally, that is very, very difficult to do, especially if you're a small club. You only have limited resources if you're a small club, and it's better to focus on one particular demographic and really work with that demographic well. See a project through from the beginning all the way to the end, and in 1 year, in one season, and then in your next season, potentially move on to a different one once you've got a format which is already set up. Don't try to take absolute thing at once. Try and break it down into exactly what it is you're wanting to achieve. So the different types of events. So fun days. I think everybody will have seen the type of events that Lakeland put on for their kit for families. These are more about introducing families to the sport, really looking at trying to make the techniques of orienteering very accessible for young people and for families, making it fun. It's very much focused on lots of fun, lots of getting outdoors, lots of running around, and hopefully snagging a few people who you can then sort of bring on at other events. So you have your Saturday series. Lots of people use these ones. Lincoln Orienteering Club have got their Explorer Awards, introductory series, Air. Lots of people do them. And again, if it's something that you've heard that a club is having success with, have a look at what they're doing, ask them lots of questions, see exactly how it is they're setting it up. Junior specific, so Quantox Orienteers have a junior orienteering group, and they have a particular series of events which are aimed just solely at juniors and bringing them on, rather than looking outside at putting on seniors. So regular club events, so Southern Orienteers will just kind of try and promote their normal events to newcomers. Trail style events, in Manchester and District, they put on Spunch. These have been a really good way of introducing trail runners into orienteering. Map run, you've got the Night Owls, Walton Chasers and the Derby map runs. Those are all about trying to introduce runners to urban orienteering and then hopefully trying to snag them using map run to come into normal orienteering. Urban and sprints, you've got Fight the Night, which is like your Edinburgh University and again Lincoln Orienteering Group, and the Rocket League, which is West Cumberland. I believe the West Cumberland one is very, very successful. They're trying to get the 20 to 40 age category. That's their focus that they're doing with that one and having great amount of success with that. And night events, Silver Night Cup. So again, West Cumberland. So there are loads and loads of different kinds of events, and they're all aimed at completely different age groups and lots of different demographics. So when you're thinking of putting your event on, you're wanting to look at the event logistics, date. You've got lots of things, weather, school holidays. The weather's usually quite a big one. If you're trying to get newcomers into the sport who are not from the outdoor background, they're not going to want to come out in the howling winds of January and February. Traditionally, we've found that spring is a really good time to try and get juniors to get into the sport. It's a time where you're just coming out of winter, they're looking for activities to do, and the weather's looking up and they're wanting to spend a little bit more time outside. School holidays, some school holidays are best avoided because people are just so busy doing holidays, and it's really difficult to try and get any sort of traction on particular school holidays. So we find the June holiday is really difficult, and the summer holidays, but the other holidays around it are great times to put on events when people have got a little bit more time. Religious considerations. I hadn't really thought about this too much until about 2 years ago, when we had a selection of juniors who were not coming to events on Sundays because that's when they go to church. So we decided then that the Saturday series, where we're trying to attract families from this particular area of Swansea, that we would put our events on a Saturday so that they could come and still go to church on the Sundays. But if you're in an area with lots of different ethnic groups, you've got to look at the different holidays and traditions that they have as well. So don't try and put on an event in the middle of one of their religious holidays or celebrations. So it's a far out one, but it's something that you should always try and consider. Existing fixtures. How is your event going to fit into the fixtures that the club is already doing? What kind of resources have you got? Have you got the time and the people to be able to put on extra events, or is it just going to be overwhelming for everybody? And event progression. When you're trying to bring in newcomers, what's going to be the next step for them? Or you always want to make sure that there's something to offer them after you've tried to bring them in at an event or a series of events. Looking at location. So the area needs to be suitable for the level of the event that you're doing. If you're trying to introduce families, you're not going to want to take them out onto the top of a fell and let them all run off loose. That's going to just scare the heebie-jeebies out of most parents. That's where we find the biggest hurdle for introducing quite a lot of juniors is parents having the confidence to be able to let their little ones out of their sight. A lot of people are very, very nervous about their kids being outside and letting them out of sight. So we try and always pick nice parks to begin with, where they can sort of run off a little bit more, have a little bit more freedom. And then throughout the series of events that we put on, we try and then build their confidence. So we move on to slightly more complex areas. So starting really easy and then just building that one up. Close to a population hub or popular visitor attraction. You've got to remember that everybody's got to try and drive or catch a bus, public transport, walk to your event. It's a lot easier to get more people to an event if it's in a hub where there's going to be lots of people and who are going to easily be able to access that particular location. Parking and public transport, you want to make it as easy as possible for people to attend your event. If they're used to going to an organised event where you've got to pay lots of money and you get your badge and you get your jumper at the end of it, everything's put on for them, everything's really easy for them, and that's the sort of thing that they're expecting from us. So again, that's something we try and always do, is try and make it as easy for them to come along to the event. Facilities. People like to have toilets. I know we don't mind jumping off behind a bush and having a wee. People who are new to the sport find that all a little bit strange. There's a lot of concern, especially amongst teenage girls, I would say, that are very, very conscious that they do not wish to be using nature or behind a tree to be able to go to the loo. So when we're sort of trying to introduce people to the event, it's nice to have facilities there for them to be able to use. Course planning. So you're wanting to plan appropriate fun day activities for different age classes. So if you're going for fun day type of activities, you've got to again look at the age group that you're going to be aiming at. The activities that you put on for a child who is under the age of 8 will be very different from the types of activities you put on for a child over the age of 8. And again, it would change probably about the age of 12. So if you are going to put on activities and you're expecting a range of ages of kids, make sure that the activity you're putting on is age appropriate. Little kids get bored very easily. They need lots of little things to keep them engaged. Older kids wouldn't be seen dead doing some of the activities that the little kids are doing. So really think about, you know, if you do have kids or if you've got juniors in the club, would the things that you're putting on actually interest them, which is good. Plan courses to the correct technical difficulty. If you're planning a white course or the equivalent of a white course, make sure it is truly a white course. It is better to make a course too easy than it is to make it too hard when you're introducing people to, especially juniors, to the sport. I know some places probably don't have areas which are suitable for white courses. If you're going straight out into terrain, at that point, I would question whether the location is correct for the type of people who are going to be coming to your event. So make sure that, you know, you do double check that you're following the correct technical difficulties for the courses. Then you get to your course names. Now, I've done quite a bit of research into what all the different clubs call their different all their different courses. You get your bog standard white, yellow, orange, red. Then you get your short, medium, long. Some people call them easy and hard. We're here in Swansea Bay. We've got trail series, which are the 2, 5 and 10. Score course, Lock have got their Venture Quest Challenge and Trailblazers with the map runs in certain areas. And then Quantox have got Badger, Squirrel, Hare and Fox. Now, it's great that everybody's got different names for everything, but you also need to be able to translate the different names that you're giving to courses into what you would offer at a normal event. So always make sure that people understand what level each one of those different courses is at if they're going to be running at it. Because if you're trying to then say, I did a quest course last time and I want to come and do a course which is very similar. If the next person who comes along doesn't know what level that quest course was at, it's going to be really difficult to be able to point that person into the correct course, which is going to be suitable for their ability. So when naming your courses, be very careful about making sure that people know what the equivalent would be if they're moving to a different event. Promotion. One of the best ways to try and get new people to your event is promoting it. I don't know how many clubs here have got social media people or people who do that sort of thing on their behalf. If you do have somebody, that's fantastic. They will know most of what I'm about to say on this one. So it's appropriate wording and eye-catching imagery, targeting the type of people you wish to attract. So if your event is targeted at younger families, there's no point in putting a 70-year-old person running through a wood on your posters. They're going to look at that and just kind of go, well, it's not going to be for me, is it? So when you're looking at images, make sure that you put the type of person on the imagery that you are trying to attract. Regular posting in social media is very important to try and keep up interest in your event. You've got to remember that whenever you're doing promotion for these events, it's not for your regular orienteers, it's not for club members, it is for people who are going to be new to the sport. And I think that's something you need to be very clear about with your club members, is that it's not for them. They know what's going on. They know the kind of events that they're wanting to go to. This is entirely to try and promote new people to the sport. So a few people get a bit miffy that, oh, I didn't think it was for me because I saw, you know, it's, yeah, just be a little bit clear about the fact that this is trying to promote the sport to new people, not to existing orienteers. So creating events in Facebook, that's a really good way of being able to make sure that your events stay in people's calendars. Then you can link those to future posts as well. With an event in Facebook, you can post in Facebook an event and you can then link that to Instagram, but you can't create events in Instagram. So you can only link Facebook to Instagram in that respect. Whereas on normal social media posts, you can link Instagram to Facebook, but you can't link Facebook to Instagram. It's a slightly complicated way of doing it, but so putting a post out on Instagram is something you can automatically post to Facebook. So you don't have to do 2 posts for it. You can just do 1 and then change it over. Tag and share with target groups. Great way to do this is find out which running groups you've got in your local area. Find out what Instagram tags they've got, which Facebook ones they've got. You've got local area in your council. You should have local area sports groups, local area information ones, community groups, scouts, guides, anything you can think of in your local area, make a note, tag them in it. It's amazing how much an event will get shared by people within those groups, and that's a great way of being able to increase your reach on those ones. Full details on the website. So always make sure that you tag back to your website, which is where you're going to have the full details. There's not much point in putting massive amount of details on your Facebook or Instagram posts because most people don't scroll to the bottom. A few people do, but having a link to the website is great. But the one thing you really, really have to be very clear about is where you're going to be meeting and starting. Most parks, most areas have got more than one entrance. If it does, make sure that you tag the correct entrance for where you're going to be meeting people. A lot of people get they like to be spoon-fed information. Quite a lot of people will message you and say, oh, where are you meeting? Where are you doing this? And instead of just saying, oh, details are on the website, give them a little bit of information and then give them the link to the website as well. A lot of people are not very good at actually reading details. So just be aware that you will probably get lots of questions about that. Don't get exasperated at them, just answer them gently and direct them to where you need to go. If your club works with local partners, they're again a great one. So if you've got contacts in your local council, if you've got any local schools, try and get them to promote it for you. If you've got members of your club who are members of running clubs as well, get them to post up as well. Scouts or guides, running clubs, and inviting people who've been to recent events but are not members. They're also quite a good way of, it's like, you came to an event, would you like to come and do some more? And that sort of thing. So whoever looks after your event registration details should have most people's contact information. When they gave that information when they were entering an event, they will have agreed automatically for their details to be on your database. So then you can send out information. But if you're going to do that, do put a little thing at the bottom that says, if you do wish to be removed from our newsletter, do let me know so that they can be wiped off if needs be. So there you go. That's that. Now that you're all ready for your event, because you've put lots of preparation in, you've done loads of promotion, you've registered everybody, and you've got good numbers of people kind of coming along, you're now up for running the event. Equipment needs and visibility. So have you got enough loan equipment? Have you got enough compasses, thumb and base plate compasses, dibbers? Make sure that you've got lots of everything, as you'll never know how many people are going to turn up. Always nice to have thumb compasses and base plate compasses for people to play with, especially if they're going to take up the sport. Most of them will probably move over to using a thumb compass, and kids love thumb compasses. If they've just been used to having a compass around their neck, they think it's brilliant. Ensure there are enough maps for people to run one or more of the courses. So when they register, they'll probably register onto one course, but if they really enjoy it and say they did the white course and they found that far too easy, make sure you've got enough maps so that they can run a yellow course as well. And also it's quite nice to then hand maps out of slightly more difficult courses so that people can see what you can progress to. Provide a shelter, so a place to leave bags and keys. It's also nice and visible. if you've got yourself a nice big tent up, and it gives people somewhere, a hub to be able to meet up afterwards. An information board. Not everyone is happy to ask what's going on. I don't know if many clubs have got these, but we have got an A-frame board, which we refresh every year with information about the club, about the sport, about the different events which we've got coming up. And a lot of people who are walking through the park will come up and just have a little shufty at that and nod their head. So I say, oh, can I have some more information, please? And then we've got a nice leaflet which we can hand over to them. Yeah, it's quite a nice way of not having of being able to pass on information without having to actually engage absolutely everybody in the park who's looking a bit, not sure what you're doing. So nice way for them to have a look. Ensure you're visible when people arrive. So you need to be easily seen from the car park, or it needs to be well signposted. You don't want somebody turning up and then not being able to find you. So make a big hoo-ha of where you're going to actually be located on the day. Club flags are brilliant because they do help with your identity and your visibility. Officials in club tops. It really helps if you all have the same tops on. Club tops are really, really good. It gives you the same branding. It also means that newcomers know who they can talk to about what's going on, about what they should do, and help and advice. And it's also good to have flyers promoting the club and future events to hand out to anybody who's passing, people who come along. And when they're finished, once they get their little download, you can hand them a leaflet then, and then they've got something to take away with them. Some people might chuck them straight in the bin, but a few people will have them then lying around the house. And it's a really easy way to just promote what the club is doing. And the cost of getting flyers produced these days is minimal. Vistaprint are particularly cheap, which is really good. Volunteer roles. So in an ideal world, if you have enough volunteers, you would have many of the following: meet and greet, coach for the day, registration, start, download, and photography. So meet and greet is just somebody who's there to say hello to people, chat through what's going on, what they should do, hand them over to registration, and just basically hold their hand whilst they're taking part in their first event. Coach for the day. Now, this doesn't have to actually be a coach. It just has to be somebody who knows what they're talking about, who can take them through the map. So taking them through the different colours on the map, the different symbols, showing them how to use the thumb compass if they've not used one, compass bearings, and just to give them a bit of reassurance about going out and doing their course. Registration. This one's quite good because you definitely need to make sure that you capture people's details. If somebody turns up on the day, you want to make sure that you've got their email address so that you can contact them for any future events. It's also the part where you can reiterate that you come back to download after you've finished and hand back dibbers, and also that's a great way to chat with them. At the start, it's nice to have somebody there who can then hand over almost from the meet and greet person and the coach for the day, and you can take them through the start procedure, because again it can be a bit, oh god, the start's here, oh I've got to run, oh. And it kind of all the information that has been handed it to them just goes straight out of their brains, and they just run usually backwards the way that they've just come. Download, again, somebody to talk through results is fantastic. And photography, if you've got a spare person, taking lots of nice photographs so that you can use them in post-event promotion, and also just in other promotion for the club as well. If it's not possible to have all of those people, which for a small club it probably isn't, coach for the day is I would say the most vital link for any newcomers. All of the other roles can mostly be combined. And if limited, use your volunteers wisely and put them in roles that best suit their skill set. We'll all have been to events where where you turn up and the grumpiest of grumps is the person who greets you, and you're like, oh, Okay. So do not put that person as a meet and greet. We all know those people. They should perhaps be behind the scenes when you're trying to encourage newcomers to the sport. But everyone has their skill set, and for some people, it's not greeting people in a happy and jovial manner. So really do double check who you're putting on the front line. You want your smiley happies on the front line, and yeah, I don't think I need to go any further on that one. We all just know. Taking pictures. So know your club policy on taking pictures and ensure that this policy is highlighted in event and activity details. I think most clubs these days have probably got a proviso on the bottom of their event details saying that pictures will be taken. Just make sure that it's in there if you're going to have anybody taking photos on the day. So it's always good to try and take some action shots for using social media posts and for future promotion. Take pictures of the area you are using the event setup. It's good for promoting events in the future. So even though there is a policy, it's always good manners to check if it's okay to take pictures if it's a close-up of someone's face, especially if they're a newcomer. For most members of the club, if they're looking particularly sprightly, they'll usually have a camera shoved in their face, kind of going, yeah, you look great. But if they're newcomers, it's just polite to ask whether it's okay to use a photograph of them and to be able to take a photograph of them. If you see others taking pictures, ask if they can share, and make sure you credit the photographer if you're going to use their photos in any promotional posts that you're going to be putting out. So you run your event. It was very successful. Well done. Now you need to be able to keep up the momentum and capitalize on your hard work. Follow-up emails. So communication is key. Anybody that comes to an event wants to feel, it's nice to make them feel valued. So you try and post your results as soon as possible onto the club website. Thank people for coming, include results links, and take the opportunity to promote future events, and if possible, include a link to details and entries. It's perhaps the easiest way to be able to try and encourage people to come to more events is let them know what's happening. Also at your event, you'll have chatted about the different events which are going to be there and what they can, what kind of events they might like to do in the future. Newcomer newsletter. So think about sending out a newsletter each month to independent runners, anyone who makes an inquiry, and newcomers to the club, highlighting upcoming events and orienteering opportunities. This is something that we've recently started doing. We actually have 3 different newsletters that we send out. We've got one which is for club members, existing club members, one which is specifically for juniors, and then one is for anybody who's been to an event within the last, I think, 6 to 12 months. And that highlights, so we send those out at the beginning of each month just to let them know which events are coming up and which events they might be interested in of our neighbouring clubs. Sorry, neighbouring club. There's only one. So yeah, and it's quite nice because a lot of members that you get, or potential members, they'll be on the peripheries. So it's nice then to be able to sort of like point out that there is another event coming up, which is not too far away from where your event was, but it might be in another club's areas. Yeah, so that's that one. Ooh. Social media and website. So after your event, you've sent your email to thank everybody for coming along. At that point, it's quite nice to create a post with a write-up of the event and post on Instagram and Facebook, and then share that to your Instagram and Facebook story. It's a great way to be able to highlight the positives of your event, and people appreciate a bit of a shout out if they've done particularly well, or a hello on those ones. You use hashtags and tag people and groups in your post. Hopefully your social media person, if you have one of those, knows about hashtags and tagging people and all those things. Create a reel with photo highlights. Keep it snappy. Use music with appropriate lyrics. They're really good, actually. Small, snappy little reels, especially if you can, short and snappy. quite proud of the one we did this weekend, which racked up, I think, 1,500 views so far from just one of the ones that we did this weekend. And that was, you know, it's really good. That was shared by a lot of people across a lot of different groups that we wouldn't normally be able to get to. So we're hoping that, fingers crossed, that was good. Do a write-up for the club website. Again, that can be slightly more in depth. So the posts that you put out on social media are slightly shorter and to the point, but on the club website, it's quite nice to write a slightly bigger chunk. And always put the details of the next event into posts to build up interest. The other thing which is always good to do on any of these things is to thank all of your volunteers for any input that they've had. And on the website, thanking landowners is quite nice because they like to see their name in print. Progression pathways. Oh, don't let your event be something that is standalone. This is perhaps the most important aspect of any newcomer initiative that you're doing, is that there's no point almost in putting on a fantastic newcomer event if there is then nowhere for them to go. Know in advance what it is that where they can go to next. You know, what kind of event are you going to be signposting people to? The progression pathway for a junior is very different to that of a senior. A senior will pick things up quite quickly. A junior will probably go through all of the motions. So they'll go through TD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas an adult will probably jump in at 2, going on 3, and then they'll propel themselves straight to 5 without really doing 4 in between times, because after they've been to a couple of events, they all know what they're doing. And yeah, so very, very different pathways and different types of event, which will then keep them hooked. So does your club or association have an award system for juniors or seniors? British Orienteering have obviously got their incentive schemes, which everyone will have had those little emails saying congratulations, not just in your rankings, but also the ones which you get your little 5-star and your little 3-star navigation awards and things. For juniors, they're great, especially participation awards. For our particular one, in the Welsh juniors, we have awards, and it goes up to 100 events, I think it is, and they get badges every time they do 5 events, 10, 25, and so forth. And for youngsters, that's a really, really good way to keep them engaged. The only issue with that is that they either have to keep track of what they're doing, or somebody else has to. They also got their different awards for each time they move up into a different colour code. So each time they've done TD 1, 2, 3, 4, they get a different badge for each one of those ones, just as a sort of a recognition for what they've done. We don't have those awards for the seniors, but we do have a booklet for them, which it's slightly different to the junior ones. It shows them exactly how they can progress up each of the different technical difficulties, and it's got a lot of information about how they can progress in the sport and things like that. We also have a control challenge, which is the equivalent of your British Schools awards, where the number of controls that they collect within an event gets added up, and they can then get their hedgehog, squirrel, badger, owl and fox awards. They can also tick off the different kinds of events that they've been to as well. And those are great for kids which are, well, again, young families who don't necessarily come to all of our events and don't progress up the orienteering pathway, but they will come to all of our Saturday events, and it keeps them engaged, and then they'll come to the next series of Saturday events that we have. And you know, they don't become members, but they're still engaged in the sport, and to us that's a win, because they pass that on to their friends. And getting new members is the end goal, but it's also nice to just have lots of people come up and just enjoy running around and enjoying the sport. What information can you give people to take away with them? So again, this goes back to leaflets, flyers about the sport and about the event. And unless they bring it up, don't push joining the club. It often scares people off when you start talking about membership when they've only just been along to their first ever event. You're wanting to try and encourage them to come to another event. And after they've come to that event, it's kind of like, brilliant, well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. You know, would you like to try some more? And at that point, you can start introducing the concept that it's a heck of a lot cheaper if you do become a member. And those sorts of things. So to begin with, the goal is to try and just encourage them to come to another event. And that's all you're trying to do with any of these seniors, juniors, is just one more event. And after you've got them to one more event, the next goal is just one more event. And then hopefully after they've been to a few, that's when they start picking it up a little bit more. And so you're constantly trying to find ways to make it attractive to people to come to these events. You're trying to keep it engaging. You're trying to keep it fun. You're trying to keep it light. You're not trying to bombard them with, you know, issues that the sport might have or anything like that. It's just it's just fun and engaging and, you know, a joyous thing to be doing. And then we finish off. When obstacles arise, you change your direction to reach your goal. You do not change your decision to get there. The idea behind that is the chances are you will fail a little bit, but every failure is a learning experience. And you take your learning from one particular thing that didn't particularly work, and then you try again, you try a slightly different angle. And if that doesn't quite work, you try another angle. So we're never wanting to stop just because something doesn't quite work out as we're expecting. We just learn from it, and next time we just try a slightly different direction. Okay, and that's kind of the end of the presentation. So if anybody's got any questions, please do ask.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kerina. A lot to think about there, and I can see somebody with a round of applause react as well, and I can absolutely agree with that one. We now welcome any questions, so please feel free to put questions into the chat, the Q&A, or use the raise hand function at the top of the screen, and we're happy to take any questions. There's a couple from the Q&A that I can start off with. Now, I believe this one was asked on the slide where you'd listed the events earlier, quite near the start. And Sarah asked that ESO had ESO's regular club night. And she asked, how is that specific to a particular group?
On that particular one, they put on training before they put on the actual events themselves. So it's a good way for if they've got any, I believe it's mostly aimed at juniors, but they kind of put on a little bit of coaching before they actually run the event. So they are regular events, but they're also trying to upskill people as they come. So they do a little bit of training, then they can do the event, a little bit of training, then they do the event. And it's actually a really, really good way to incorporate a training into, if you've got juniors who, it's not necessarily brilliant for newcomers because they might not quite get that, but if you've got some kids or some seniors who've been coming to a couple of events and they want to progress, it's a brilliant progression pathway.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kerina, and thank you, Sarah, for the question. Jenny's hand has gone back up. Brilliant. Jenny, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was really good. One of the challenges that we end up with is kind of volunteer workload and how you balance putting on enough events without burning people out. As you can tell, I'm multitasking with a certain level of success tonight.
Well, we found that this is something I did well as part of the development of Swansea Bay, is that we kind of altered our fixtures for the entire year, so that so we're kind of split into two 6 month periods. So we sort of start off the summer league is in the beginning of May, and then that follows through to the end of September, and then September to October. So in the first bit of the month, in the lead up to the Summer League, we put on 4 Saturday park events, which are specifically designed for newcomers. There is a course there for more experienced orienteers, and those Saturday events are really great for introducing newcomers. Once they've got used to those events, they then move on to the rest of the Summer League events. Then in the autumn, we move on to trying to progress seniors, so that they move straight into the Winter League events, which are a little bit more tricky. But by that time, the juniors that you've brought on from the beginning of the year are then ready to go out into terrain in the winter. So we try and sort of incorporate it so that there's a constant circle of putting on events and activities for juniors in the spring, so that they're doing stuff and getting used to orienteering whilst the weather is nice. Seniors don't particularly mind the weather being a little bit more exciting. So we've put those on in the October, ready for them to get into the sport during the winter. And the ones that we do over the winter, you've got your traditional events. We also do the map runs over the winter, and we also run something called Trail Challenge events, which are the ones which we get the most. In fact, we get the most members from the Trail Challenge events. It's the one that we get the crossover from running clubs. And so that's been our focus, is putting on really good events for seniors in the winter time and focusing more on juniors and like families in the springtime when the weather's slightly better. And we found that works okay, because we're not burning people out in that way. We're just keeping this constant circle going of events. And yeah, so we haven't actually I think we put a couple more events on than we used to, but it's not so much that we're completely knackered.
Thank you. Oh, Kerina, just so you know, this one got her 50 badge the other week.
Yay! Well done. Alan's got 50.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, both. I'll move on to the other question that we had in the Q&A from Sarah again. So Sarah said, all very interesting, and sends a thanks. But she said a lot of it does rely on good communications and publicity. What would you suggest for a small club which doesn't have a social media guru?
That is a tricky one. So currently I am the Swansea Bay guru, and I started off from not knowing anything about social media 3 years ago, and sort of built my knowledge in terms of I'm not sure whether Sport England does the same sorts of things, but Sport Wales does free webinars and updates that you can go on to try and sort of build up a basic knowledge of social media. And you start very, very small. You start with, as long as you've got yourself an Instagram account and you've got yourself a Facebook account, as soon as the two are linked together, every time you put a post out on Instagram, it goes out on Facebook. So you can kind of just start very, very small with a selection of nice imagery, which we use Canva for that. We use the free Canva, because the one you pay for is a little expensive unless your club is a registered charity. In that case, you can get Canva for free. And then, yeah, I've slowly built up the skills over the last 4 years to put the sorts of things together that we do now. But it did all start very much, quite clunky, and it slowly got a lot better.
I can see Sarah's hand up for a follow-up, and I will quickly, of course, I'll invite you, Sarah, now to unmute as well, but I'll quickly add in as well that from the last 2 development conferences from our end as well, I do remember very well that we had Alex on, who's our head of communications and marketing, who did 2 sessions that sort of linking quite well as the first steps and then the next steps as well for promoting your club, and that involved a lot of work with Canva as well, and also Facebook and Instagram. And in the second section, there was more about the more complex side when you're getting onto, targeted paid advertising and things like that. But they're all available on the website and on the YouTube channel as well. If you'd like to unmute, Sarah, then feel free.
Yeah, I mean, what you said, it all makes sense and it all seems incredibly sensible. But when you are talking about half a dozen people who try and put on events in a club, and the previous question about doesn't it burn people out? I've just gone to British Orienteering website and looked at SBOC events. I mean, you have got 2 pages of events. I mean, we barely manage to scrape together about 4 events a year. So, where do you start? Because there's no point publicising if you haven't got anything to follow up. If you and you've got, it's all very well having loads of courses on how to use Instagram and social media. You've got to first find someone who's interested in doing it and who's got the time to do it. And it's just, I've always tried to advocate that. I think you do need to have a program, but it's very hard getting people to commit to putting on an event, every now and again. And it's where, what do you do first if you've got nothing? You put on an event and that takes up all your energy, and you've got to follow it up with something, and you've got to have prepared that in advance. So it almost defeats the object, and you go back and think, well, there's no point putting the first thing on because I haven't got anything to follow it up.
At that point, so when we were trying to work out exactly what we could put on, we tried to sort of split everything. I don't know quite how your club puts events on. I don't know whether you have yourself a planner, you have an organizer, you've got a person who does. I don't know how many volunteers each one of your events takes. At Swansea Bay, we have one person who puts on, who organises, plans, does download, entries, and does everything for that particular event. They have other people who kind of come in and step in and do bits, but each one of our organisers are skilled in being able to do everything that you need to do to be able to put on an event. But that having been said, the number of people who we get to our event is, let's see, on an average event, we get 30 people coming along.
Wow.
So
that's quite a lot for a small low-key event. We can put events on and get 10, less than 10. And if it's 5, you just think, why am I bothering?
Yeah, we started off that way with the Saturday Park events. I think there was a couple of them that we did where we didn't get anybody turn up to them. But then, yeah, we started building up a few more partnerships with the local council, and we managed to get a grant through the local council. But this is when I was the development officer, so I kind of put most of that in place whilst I was doing that. And I know that it's a tricky one, but they do, having a paid development officer can help in that respect, in being able to set you up a structured set of events. But I'm not sure, which club are you?
Suffolk.
You're Suffolk. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anybody else here from my club. And sometimes I do get a little frustrated with other people because but I haven't got any more to give. I don't have enough time to put on an event every month. And other people are in the same boat, and I'm not keen on social media, and I don't have enough time to sort it out anyway. You've got to have somebody who is dedicated to want to do it all, and if you haven't got that, you're basically, it almost feels like there's no point sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely get that.
I'm not I'm trying not to be negative, but it's what you're suggesting is wonderful, but there are an awful bit. I'm sure we're not the only club who would not have the resources to do it.
At that point, you prioritize exactly what it is that you're wanting to do. So you're saying you've managed to put on about 4 events in the year. Do you have other clubs around you who put on events which you can promote to people doing? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Anyway, you know, it's all getting a bit personal. Other people want to ask questions, but I do think, I mean, I agree with everything that you've said. I think it's fantastic, but it's inspiring other people within your club to do it. That is the difficult bit.
Yeah. If you'd like to have a chat at a different time separately, more than happy to have a chat and go over a few more bits and bobs in more details.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, both. I'll go to the raised hand. Is it Jenny again? And I'll potentially make this the last one as we come up to time.
Sorry, I was just going to say I completely empathise with Suffolk's position, because we have been in and that's an enviable position as well. And I think the thing we did that helped the most was almost didn't focus on traditional orienteering very much at all. Sorry, British orienteering, but really focused on map runs, because they could be put on by one person without killing the very limited volunteer pool. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
Well, I am a great proponent of map run, but at a recent committee meeting, somebody quite loudly said, we're not a map run club. Map run's not orienteering. And I'm sorry, that is the sort of attitude that some of us have to deal with.
Good luck.
Always a tricky one, that one, because yeah, we struggle with getting anybody to our map run events. Usually we have about 10 people coming along, so we've now made them free, and we invite clubs along to so they're now activities. They're now free, and we invite local running clubs along to come and join as part of their training night, and that's starting to pick up a little bit of traction. And again, that's not necessarily to get members, it's just to try and get a few more people interested in orienteering and the concept of orienteering and the concept of holding a map and navigating. It's not true orienteering as people would say, but it's a great in for a lot of people coming along from running clubs.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Kerina. And all orienteering is good orienteering.
Yeah.
I'll try and sneak. I'll sneak in this last hand up from Karen before we get going. If you'd like to unmute. Oh, you're still on mute at the moment. Look on mute. Don't worry, I'll give you a second. He says it's okay. Please feel free to pop a question over to myself or Kerina. I think my email's knocking around in the chat, so we can definitely get something arranged. Unfortunately, apologies for you being stuck there. So I'll start to just wrap things up. So a huge thank you, Kerina, for the very interesting and detailed session. And there's a lot to consider about events. I think, as I said not long ago, all orienteering is good orienteering. And it's very important that even with the slide up to look at the types of events, that a different fit will work for a different club. And it's been really informative and a very, very good Q&A as well. So thank you all for your questions as well. I'll do a little bit of promotion for the other session we have this week, which is safeguarding in practice with the NSPCC, handling low-level concerns and codes of conduct. And then we also have a few sessions next week, including the update from the Safety Advisory Group and creating engaging experiences beyond the event, crafting experiences that captivate. A bit of a mouthful, but a very interesting session to come. All the information on all the sessions can be found on the British Orienteering website and the Development Conferences page. And we'll also be able to find all the recordings on the YouTube channel and also on that same page at the Development Conferences. A huge thank you to Kerina again for hosting a wonderful session. A huge thank you to everybody for attending. And I'll specifically shout out Ian and everybody who's in the club in the Chasers Club Hut, because there's been a big audience in there as well. A huge thank you everybody for attending this evening, and I hope to see you again very soon. Goodbye.